lies, deception, and a lot of ducks. The beardless brother from the Robertson clan, Alan, and his wife Lisa share what kept their own dynasty together. And then, keep calm and carry on.
It provides us internally with a sense of well-being.
Because it may just save your life.
Chronic stress negatively impacts the immune system.
Hear how to protect your health.
Those are chemicals that are very important.
On today's 700 Club.
Welcome to the 700 Club. Once again, the fanatics claiming to be disciples of Islam have struck. And the nation of France is on high alert today as the hunt continues for two of the brutal killers in yesterday's massacre in Paris. The two brothers had been linked to Islamic terrorist groups for years.
Many experts are warning that this latest attack is just a symptom of a deeper problem of radical Islam in Europe. Dale Hurd brings us the story.
A French police officer has died and another has been gravely wounded in a new shooting in the southern Paris suburb of Montrouge. Police said it was too early to draw a connection between this latest shooting and the attack on the Paris offices of Charlie Hebdo, a satirical newspaper that had repeatedly made fun of Islam and Mohammed. The killers burst into an editorial meeting at the paper, shooting 8 staffers in the head, execution style, and 4 others, including 2 police officers. The killers reportedly shouted, "Allahu Akbar." God is greatest, and the Prophet is avenged. France has been alternately cracking down and coddling radical Islam for years now, and there's always been a fear that something like this could happen. A stunned France was in mourning Thursday as police and security forces hunted for the 2 suspects still at large. The third suspect, an 18-year-old, turned himself in to police. French Prime Minister Manuel Valls said there were several arrests overnight in the hunt for the brothers Sharif and Said Kouachi. Both were born in France. The massacre at Charlie Hebdo triggered demonstrations of solidarity around the world. Tens of thousands gathered in Paris carrying signs that said, "I am Charlie." This man said, "We're doing this for freedom of speech. We're mobilized, we raise our pens, and we won't get down." The head of France's official association of Muslims, Dalil Boubakour, was in damage control mode, saying the killing wasn't done in the name of Islam, but was in fact a blow struck against all Muslims. The massacre will only strengthen far-right National Front leader Marine Le Pen, who said France must stop living in denial and stand up to Islamic fundamentalism. Germany, too, is seeing a populist backlash against Muslim immigration. The organization Pegida is seeing tens of thousands of Germans turn out for demonstrations against Muslim radicalism and immigration. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Thanks, Dale. Our CBN terrorism analyst, Eric Stakelbeck, is with us now. Eric, I understand there are pockets of Muslims in Paris and places throughout France where the police don't dare to go. They have their own little enclave.
Yeah, Pat, you know, we see these no-go zones really throughout Western Europe, but in Paris in particular, the suburbs, they're surrounded by these high-rise housing projects, Pat, where many, many Muslims live. As a matter of fact, France has the largest Muslim population in Western Europe. People might not know this. 10% of the French population is now Muslim. And Pat, here's the problem. Much of this Muslim community in France, as you mentioned, is segregated from the indigenous France. And what we've seen is this Muslim community become radicalized in these housing projects outside of Paris and in other areas around France. And we have seen at least 900 French citizens travel to the Middle East to join ISIS, and many of them, Pat, will one day return home. Now, the people who carried out this horrific attack yesterday, we don't know if they were linked to ISIS. They apparently said that they were working for al-Qaeda. But no matter who they're working for, the problem is Islamic jihadists on French soil, and it's only going to get worse. This is only the beginning.
Eric, did these men travel to Peshawar or someplace in Pakistan or in Afghanistan or Iraq or any of those places in the Middle East to get further training?
And not that we know of yet, Pat, but here is an interesting wrinkle there. One of the men, now 2 of these shooters, they were brothers. The older brother served time in a French prison back in 2008 because he was recruiting people to send to Iraq and fight U.S. troops. Not clear whether he went himself or his brother went, but he was a terror recruiter who was recruiting Muslims to fight overseas. Now, he served time in prison, Pat. He was sentenced to 3 years. He only served 18 months, and he was released early. And now we have what we had yesterday.
Well, how does this apply in the United States? You know, I'm just appalled at the government. You've pointed out very cogently that, for example, 1,000 pages out of the FBI manual were removed because of complaints from the Arab American League, whatever it's called here. Is that a problem that we will not identify the enemies we're dealing with?
Massive, massive problem, Pat. At the end of the day, the Obama administration does not mention the word Islam in relation to terrorism. Yesterday was clearly an act of Islamic terrorism. They won't say that, will the Obama administration? They'll call it violent extremism or generically just terrorism. President Obama himself, for instance, says that ISIS, the Islamic State, is not Islamic. So we have Western leaders burying their heads in the sand, number one. Number two, reaching out to Islamists, the people who have the ear of the Obama administration, Pat, and you and I have discussed this many times, are foot soldiers of the Muslim Brotherhood. These are radical Islamists who are advising this White House. So you have a big problem here when you can't acknowledge the enemy because the enemy is actually advising you.
Well, you know, El-Sisi in Egypt made a very cogent statement. He said, look, this whole thing, when the whole world is afraid of Islam, when are the so-called moderates going to wake up, or will they ever wake up?
Pat, I'm here in Washington, D.C. I'm still waiting for that million Muslim march on the National Mall. We still haven't seen it since 9/11, right? When are they going to wake up? Pat, if ISIS hasn't awoken a slumbering, moderate Muslim community around the world, I don't know what will. You have ISIS hacking the heads off of men, women, and children, and we still don't see a massive, moderate Muslim uprising. I think there's a few reasons for that. I think one of them, quite frankly, is fear. They're afraid their head will be next on the chopping block. I don't see it happening. At the end of the day, and El-Sisi, you mentioned that speech, Pat, excellent, incredible speech by the Egyptian president, calling for basically a reformation, a revolution in Islam against the jihadists. I don't know what the tipping point's going to be there. Again, if it hasn't happened yet, with things like we see yesterday and we saw a few weeks ago in Pakistan with the Taliban killing 150 school children, if it hasn't happened yet, I don't know when it is going to happen, but at the end of the day, if Muslims don't stand up and root out the jihadists, this war is going to continue for a long time, and the West is not showing the will to win it.
Eric, thank you so much for the work you're doing. Keep it up, buddy. We
Thank you,
really
Pat.
appreciate you. Eric Stakelbeck, ladies and gentlemen. Didn't President Kennedy write a book while America or while Europe slept? Got a Pulitzer Prize for that. But, you know, we're asleep. You just wonder what is going to happen. Well, I want to point out, we're trying to sound the alarm. You must be informed about what's going on. There is so much obfuscation going on, so much lying, so much, painting over the bad part to make it look pretty. We have a book called Islam, Religion of Peace or War. It tells the truth about what Muhammad said, what the foundation documents of this religion say, what they have said when the scholars said, well, he had certain statements that he said when he was younger, but then they are now consumed or subsumed by the later statements of Muhammad. And we've got all this in here, and you need to get it. You need to have it in your churches to know what's going on when you see these things in the news. 1-800-759-0700. This comes to you free if you want it. Islam, Religion of War or Peace. Well, here in America, 3 Americans are dead after a snow caused a massive traffic pileup in Pennsylvania, just a little bit to the north of here. And I frankly have a confession to make. this garden spot of America that we live in, we invited so many people to come. It got to be 0 last night, wind chill, 15 degrees and 25-mile-an-hour wind. And it's cold. It's even like Wisconsin.
Wisconsin's colder than this.
Well, with you,
This is a balmy summer.
yeah, balmy. She was saying, well, we've got to put on our bathing suits and stand out and enjoy the sunshine. Okay. Well, so much. Here is John Jessup to tell us about the weather that's hitting our nation. Here's John.
That snowstorm, Pat, is just part of the severe weather hitting much of the U.S. The dangerous cold has left in place wind chill warnings, watches, or advisories for more than 150 million people, all the way from Montana to Maine to as far south as Florida. Caitlin Burke reports on the Arctic cold that's got a hold of more than half the country.
People across the country are shivering together today as extreme cold hovers over the central and eastern U.S. Forecasters say that for many, today is the coldest day of winter so far.
It's very cold out here, man.
I just sit there and bounce up and down, trying to get like some kind of warmth going.
The National Weather Service predicts that about 90% of the country will experience sub-zero temperatures today. Here in Virginia Beach, it's 15 degrees, but with the wind chill, it feels like 1 degree. Lake-effect snowstorms caused whiteout conditions in some areas. In Pennsylvania Wednesday, the snow caused an 18-car pileup. 3 people were killed and dozens hurt. In Chicago, more than 200 school districts are closed because of the cold. The wind chill there expected to be about 30 below zero. And homeless shelters across the country are opening their doors, trying to get everyone who's willing to come inside.
You could die in your sleep. Cold weather.
The National Weather Service advises everyone to bundle up. They warn that frostbite can occur in a matter of minutes when you're outside in sub-zero temperatures with exposed skin.
A lot of layers, have a shirt, a hoodie, a button-up shirt. I'm wearing long johns, some high-tech ones, double socks, and just keep moving. I'm not trying to stand still for too long.
Another round of painfully cold air is expected to sweep from the Midwest to the east to close out the week. So if you have the option, just stay inside. I know that's where I'm headed. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
Turning to health news, exercise can help keep you young even as you get older. A new study found there wasn't much difference among very physically fit people between 79 and 55 years old. The study was done at King's College in London. The London Telegraph reports the researchers believe the findings debunk the idea that people automatically become weaker as they get older. The researchers ran a wide variety of tests on amateur cyclists between 79 and 55, including their aerobic abilities, resting heart rate, and muscle density. The bottom line, it's not aging itself that makes your body grow old, it's the lack of physical activity. So staying active keeps your body healthier and younger even as you do get older. And Pat, that explains the secret as to why you're so young and healthy.
That is just one of the secrets. I also chose my ancestors very wisely.
That was very wise of you.
Well, I mean, the Bible says 120. I mean, it says 120. That's what it says. You read about Noah, and okay, the time of man is going to be 120. Now you read the Psalms, our day of our lives, 70, and for reason of strength you get 80. That's 80, but 120. Joshua 110, Moses 120. So I mean, hey, why not?
Exactly.
Why
the question,
not?
Why not?
The thing of it is, something gets infected, you cut it out. Something that says pull it out. You got all these things they do to cut out bad stuff in their lives and put in something good. So
got
make
good
use
medical help today.
Good medical help. So anyhow, will you join me in going for 110?
I'll think about it. I'll think about it.
Right. If you read,
that's all wonderful if
you
you're
read
well.
Palms, this is a lifeline. And mine has gotten deeper and longer and longer and longer. Yeah. And all of a sudden it's just coming around my wrist. I mean, what?
I think of that as a wrinkle, but whatever.
Well, there's some people who think they're wrinkles. All right. Okay. So you can have wrinkles, I'll have a long
You'll
life.
have a lifeline, right?
All right.
Okay. Well, up next, meet a fixture from downtown D.C. with an infectious smile. Hear how he went from 33 years of homelessness to supporting himself and renting his own apartment. And then later on, Duck Dynasty's Al and Lisa Robertson share the inside story of their shaky courtship and rocky marriage. They're going to join us live on today's 700 Club.
Tomorrow, time to get up and go.
Our chairs are literally killing us.
Hear why we're made to move.
The most important thing, the data are very clear.
Plus, from the Green Bay Packers,
it's not that hard of a game.
All-Pro receiver Jordy Nelson's unlikely path to Lambeau Field.
That's something I think everyone dreams of.
Tomorrow on the 700 Club.
You're watching the 700 Club. We're so glad you're with us. We just love having you as part of the family. Well, on any given night in America, more than 500,000 people go to bed without a place to call home. Even in one of the world's most powerful cities, the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. But there is hope. John Jessup brings us the remarkable story of one man who was homeless for 33 years, and then he turned his life around.
Come rain or shine.
Good morning.
One thing you can count on in the nation's capital
How you doing?
is this jolly character selling papers at this busy downtown intersection in Washington, D.C., where Anthony Crawford is always ready to deliver a smile and an occasional hug.
Here go my special friend. I'm good. How you doing? Great.
But it wasn't always sunshine for Anthony. Less than 2 years ago, he was living on the streets.
I first started sleeping right here. Then it got kind of rainy one night. I moved around the corner, moved to this side, then I started sleeping right here.
Across the street from where he used to sleep, Anthony explained how he fell on hard times after his father died.
I was out hanging with some friends New Year's and come home in 1980, found out he had passed away.
He started drinking, lost his job and apartment, and drifted from park benches to street corners for 33 years. He tried panhandling.
Just shaking the cup and asking people for money.
But that didn't last long.
I wasn't too fond of that because people look at you sort of different way. They look over you like you're not even there.
Things turned a corner when he learned about a local newspaper called Street Sense.
Get the Street Sense newspaper.
The purpose of the paper is to change people's perception about homelessness.
Have a good one. You too. Thank you. You have a great day.
The bi-weekly publication features articles about and often written by DC's homeless.
This year, Anthony celebrates 10 years as a Street Sense vendor. He buys the paper in bulk and then sells them at a higher price, a $2 donation. He then either keeps the profit to purchase more papers or to pay off his bills. Anthony sees Street Sense as a lifeline that's opened up doors he once thought unimaginable.
It gives me a chance to meet people I never met before, like doctors, lawyers, professional people.
People like Reed Sandridge.
We're the best of friends.
Who, at the time, was also down and out.
I'd been out of work for about maybe 4 or 5 months when I met Anthony. And every day I'd go by 19th and M where he works. He would be there every morning selling the Street Sense paper. And we just became friends. What are you doing tonight?
Anthony credits his friendship with Reed for helping him find a home.
I'd asked him what he wanted to do, what his goals were, where he wanted to be a year from now. And he said he wanted to find housing.
7 months later, they celebrated Anthony signing his lease.
We picked up the keys to his apartment and we came over here, and I still remember him opening the door and looking inside and seeing him make his bed for the first time. I mean, maybe 20 years he hadn't had a regular place to lay his head. And to see him make his bed with pride, and that really touched me.
What was it like the day that you got the keys and you signed the lease?
Oh my God. It was really indescribable because I had such a big smile on my face. It my place of my own.
Home, sweet home.
Yes, I love my little home. It's all mine.
Anthony is fortunate to have found housing when he did because it's becoming increasingly harder for people like him. While homelessness is on the decline nationwide, it's actually on the rise here in Washington, where the local economy is thriving and causing a housing construction boom. But that also means there are far fewer affordable housing units, which has caused the city's homeless rate to jump 13% over the previous year.
A lot of folks are swarming to the city, but that's dramatically driving up rents. A person would have to be working over 3 full-time jobs at minimum wage in a city to afford a simple 2-bedroom apartment.
While Anthony's grateful just to have a roof above his head, those around him know there's still more to come.
The story isn't over with him finding housing. You know, this is a long process. I think housing is the first step.
Anthony says he plans to get his GED and eventually move on to
social work.
Social work. So you want to help people like you've been helped?
Exactly. I want to be same streets that I come up, pick somebody up with the same streets I came up on.
In the meantime, he plans to keep telling his story and sharing that friendly smile.
Morning, Happy New Year.
With all who pass by. John Jessup, CBN News, Washington.
Doesn't that warm your heart? I mean, what a wonderful man. What a wonderful guy. Despite the obstacles, despite the privation, he's out there helping others. And, you know, Jesus said it's more blessed to give than to receive, and it really is. I mean, he's finding his life as being blessed because he's giving. And we just applaud him and thank him, and I'm sure that many people want to help him now.
Very encouraging story, yes.
So
it really
wonderful.
is.
Well, God bless
Making
you.
a difference.
You made our day. All right, Terry.
Well, coming up, everything you didn't know about Duck Dynasty's #1 son and his wife, Al and Lisa Robertson. They're going to share the good, the bad, and the ugly from their dating days and their 28 years of marriage when we come back. Lying, cheating, embezzling, adultery, and more. Al and Lisa Robertson's marriage has survived them all, long before the days of Duck Dynasty.
He's the eldest of the famous Duck Dynasty brothers, the beardless one. But Alan Robertson remembers when life wasn't so happy. After Al and Lisa were married, he left the family's duck call business to answer another call to ministry. But when Lisa reconnected with an old boyfriend, the bonds of their marriage were tested. In their book, A New Season, Al and Lisa share how lies and deception nearly destroyed their relationship and what they did to rebuild a lasting love.
Well, we want to welcome back to the 700 Club, Al and Lisa Robertson. It's great to have you both with us.
Great to be back.
In your book, you talk really candidly about things that happened, promiscuity, adultery, both before and after you were married. What made you guys decide to be so transparent about that time in your life?
Well, we've been sharing our testimony for about 10 years in different churches. And we have just found that, there are people out there that think that ministers maybe don't have the same problems as other people. Maybe even on the TV show, they think that we have the perfect lives. And Al and I want to be transparent. We want people to know that we're just like everybody else, and we have problems, and we've had struggles, but through the grace of God and His forgiveness, we've been able to overcome those problems.
Without a test, there'd be no testimony.
That's right.
That's exactly right.
I wanted to address, before we start talking about the whole, marriage history that you've walked through. Recently, talking about being transparent, you did an interview with the Huffington Post that the end result of what came out of that was not really honest and true to where you stand today. You shared that you had gone through an abortion at a certain time in your life, and just talk about that for a minute.
Well, I was 16 years old, and whenever we were talking with the interviewer, she just, was saying, well, your life has turned out great since you had an abortion. I mean, you got the man that you always wanted. And I said, yeah, but my life didn't turn out great. There's been many years since then that I have really struggled with that decision. I know that decision was not the right decision. We do have a choice in this world, whether or not we do that or not. But I am totally pro-life. I am pro-God. I am pro-babies, you know. The time of conception is when that life begins. And I believe that we should honor that life. And so I just kind of got a little mixed up whenever we were talking. But I'm definitely pro-life. But like I said, we all do have a choice as to whether or not we want to go there. And I want people to know that you can be forgiven whenever you've done those things in your past.
That was also a time in your life where you didn't know the Lord.
That's exactly right. I was not a Christian.
Yeah. Speaking of a time in your life when you didn't know the Lord, Al, when you first started dating Lisa, which was, I mean, you guys have known each other for a long time in high school, and really she was just another conquest for you at that time, right?
It was, and I'm embarrassed to admit it, Terry. It was probably the worst, obviously, time in my life because I happened to intersect with Lisa at a time when I was, instead of being a good influence, someone to show her a better way. And she was actually a good girl at the time who had experienced sexual abuse, which we talk about in the book. And so I just really piled on top of that by treating her terribly. Yeah. And so, it's embarrassing to me now to look back on that.
How would you describe your dating relationship with Al at that time and with other guys?
We were, of course, he was the one that I lost my virginity to at 15. But after that, there was, when he left and went to New Orleans, there was many men in between there, or boys, I guess.
Did you feel abandoned?
Absolutely. I thought that I'd finally found the one person that I could depend on that loved me for who I was, and and then he left. And so I kind of went through a free fall there and just, for a year and a half, just kind of went off in the deep end,
But that's not always unusual. When someone has experienced being molested as a child, there is that search for, surely there's someone out there who will really love me for who I am and who will stick with me and all of that, I think, had to have influenced your choices at that time in your life.
Well, I really think it did, and I think it did whenever I was an adult also. I think that whenever something that detrimental happens whenever you're a child, I think it kind of messes up your way of thinking. And for years, I thought that my purpose in life was to please men. Because at 7 years old, that's kind of how it started. And, these things happen all the time.
Yeah.
And people...
Far more than we know.
That's exactly right.
Lives.
And I get tons of emails about women who have been sexually molested. And, they tell me, how did you get over it? How did you do this? Yeah. That's another reason why we put this book out, and we wanted to be transparent, because we want people to know that God can heal you from that.
Yeah. Ultimately, it was adultery in your own marriage together that turned you both to Christ.
Right.
Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I think in Lisa's case, it was finally having that realization that instead of wanting to please men, or even me as her husband, that she needed to please Christ first. She needed to have that relationship where it needed to be. Since Lisa was a young girl, she had me as the Lord of her life. I was going to be her knight in shining armor, even though I had treated her badly as well. And when Jesus finally got in that spot, when he got at the top of her life, that changed her. Well, ultimately, that changed me and changed us. And so, from that point forward for the last 15 years, we've understood what we didn't understand before.
So talk about how, in a lot of marriages, of course, the whole thing is a journey. We all are a work in progress. We work at our marriages, we work at our lives. But when there has been brokenness, in vows and in faithfulness, forgiveness is sometimes a very hard thing for people to attain. How did you guys, after many years of marriage, after many ups and downs, and then, you had a full-blown affair in your marriage, how did you work through that?
Well, it took a lot of time. Trust is not something that's just gained overnight. Just because somebody says, I forgive you, and you say you're sorry, that doesn't mean that the trust is automatically there. So it took a lot of work. We went through counseling. We just had to totally lay our lives out there. We had to learn all over again and rebuild that foundation from the ground up, because whenever we got married, we didn't build it with Christ as the center.
Solid foundation.
That's exactly right.
I would say from Lisa's perspective, it was honesty. For the first time, to be totally honest with someone, me in this case, and herself and God. And for me, it was offering that forgiveness. And here's what I realized, Eric. A lot of people say the words, I forgive you, but then they don't live the words of I forgive you. And so a year later, a month later, an argument comes up and you want to go back and say, this is what you, this is why you, and so it comes back. Well, what happens is, that's not what God taught us. He said, I will forgive them and remember their sins no more. Meaning that I have to find a way to be able to bring out forgiveness in every aspect. And so I made a vow to Lisa, I would never use her past sin or mine to hurt us. And to this day, 15 years later, I have not done that.
Boy, that is an amazing vow to make and keep. And only God really can help you.
That's exactly right.
In the
It's
midst
following
of
his
that.
lead.
You know, we just have skimmed the surface of all that you share in the book, all that you've gone through, and you share it not just to air what's going on in your life, but to the glory of God in this book. What do you want people to come away with when they read it?
Well, for me personally, I want them to see hope in any damaged relationship. It's obviously focused on marriage in our book because it's our story, but there's a lot of relationships that get damaged. But you know what? Honesty, forgiveness, love, moving past, that'll heal any hurt. And so we're hoping folks find hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're very brave to be so honest with all of us, and may God use it. May God use it in other people's relationships. I want to say the book is called A New Season. It's available wherever books are sold. And we thank you so much for being with us. It's always great to see any of your family. We love having you guys here.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for having us.
Appreciate it.
Well, still ahead, stress wreaks havoc on your body's T cells, and that can make you sick.
If they can't function and they can't produce their chemicals, if you will, that help destroy anything foreign that's in the body, like a virus, like a cancer cell, like a bacteria.
Learn how to boost your T cells and fight off illness. That's coming up.
And welcome back to the 700 Club. More bad news for a Washington state florist who refused to provide flowers for a gay wedding. A county judge has ruled that the state can bring a lawsuit against Baronelle Stutzman and her shop called Arlene's Flowers. The judge also ruled that the shop can be held personally liable for violating the state's Consumer Protection Act. Stutzman says she hires gays and serves gay customers, but that her faith says marriage should only be between a man and a woman. Want to cut your risk for cancer? Eat more vegetables and drink less alcohol. That could also help you cut back on your extra weight. Obesity and being overweight have been linked to about 1/3 of all cancers. And Health Day reports that a study from New York University found that cutting back on alcohol limits the risks of certain cancers like breast, prostate, and colorectal. And that eating more fruits and vegetables was linked to a lower risk of colon cancer as well. And you can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com. Pat and Terry will be back with more of the 700 Club right after this.
Tomorrow, time to get up and go.
Our chairs are literally killing us.
Hear why we're made to move.
The most important thing, the data are very clear.
Plus, from the Green Bay Packers,
It's not that hard of a game.
All-Pro receiver Jordy Nelson's unlikely path to Lambeau Field.
That's something I think everyone dreams of.
Tomorrow on the 700 Club.
Well, what's the New Year's advice we can give people? Chill out, keep calm, and carry on. Or, my favorite, the French, soyez tranquille. That's all good advice. Reducing stress is one of the best things you can do for your body and your whole physiognomy, not just the body, but your mind as well. Well, in the fourth segment of our Protect Your Health series, Gordon shows you why it's so important. And he also gives you tips for keeping your cool.
It's the newest frontier in medicine, the study of how thoughts and feelings can affect the immune system. The more scientists learn about how the body reacts to stress, the more they realize how deadly stress is.
Chronic stress negatively impacts the immune system.
Many healthcare experts say reducing stress is the best thing you can do for your health.
even more important than diet, exercise, and sleep. Stress decreases the production of disease-fighting T cells and limits their ability to function.
If they can't function, then they can't produce their chemicals, if you will, that help destroy anything foreign that's in the body, like a virus, like a cancer cell, like a bacteria.
Stress happens when we feel fear, worry, and pessimism. Those emotions reduce our body's ability to fight off colds and flu. A UCLA study found that law students who began their first semester with an optimistic attitude had more disease-fighting T cells than the students who started the semester feeling pessimistic. Another obvious form of stress is anger. Everyone knows that you should calm down and count to 10 or maybe 100 before you send that email. But did you know that when you stay frustrated, hold on to a grudge,
she did it again,
or even constantly feel that life is unfair, you are harming your health?
You maxed this out again.
Research shows that couples who frequently use sarcasm and insults have fewer T cells.
Carry your weight around here a
You
little
gotta
bit.
be kidding me. What'd you do this time to screw it up?
They also have higher levels of stress hormones and take up to 40% longer to recover from injuries than those who stay positive and affectionate during their disagreements. Here's another surprise. The most destructive form of stress is the combination of grief and loneliness. Widows are far more likely to become ill during the year after their spouses die. The reason is that negative emotions trigger the release of stress hormones, like adrenaline and cortisol. It's okay if it lasts only a few minutes, but repeated stress over a long period of time damages your body.
We can develop an increased heart rate over time, an increase in our blood pressure over time because of this consistent amount of adrenaline that's being released. Higher levels of cortisol increase our body's overall level of inflammation. And it's that high level of inflammation that leads to chronic things like diabetes, heart disease, cancers, infections.
The good news is that there are natural ways to reduce cortisol and adrenaline. Light exercise is one of the best, so take a walk, go for a swim, or ride a bike. These activities can help you feel better, especially if you're outdoors. Exercise increases oxygen levels throughout the body, which relieves stress and stimulates endorphins, the body's natural painkiller. Exercise also increases brain chemicals like dopamine and serotonin.
Those are chemicals that are very important in how we are able to reduce anxiety, reduce feelings of depression or dysthymia, kind of the blues. And so exercise is a terrific way that we can and should help to lower daily stress.
You can also reduce stress by regular prayer. Schedule a quiet time for prayer and take time just to be still. In one experiment, people who meditated over an 8-week period made more antibodies than those who didn't. They also maintained a stronger immune system 4 months later. While you're praying, make sure that you've forgiven everyone who may have wronged you. Forgiveness reduces stress.
So the idea of being able to let go, accept, not necessarily agree with what has been done if you feel like you've been wronged, but being willing to accept what happened, move forward, and not consistently looking in your rearview mirror.
After you've prayed and forgiven, go out and connect with people and let them know that you care.
When we are in social situations, when we are being caregivers or providing volunteerism to others, what this does is it provides us internally with a sense of well-being.
A simple touch from another person reduces stress, and a gentle hug releases the love hormone oxytocin. A study of people between the ages of 18 and 55 found that those who had 6 or more close friends were 4 times better at fighting off viruses than people with fewer connections. And while you're socializing, laugh. According to a variety of studies, laughter activates T cells and increases production of antibodies. Even thinking about a funny event can have a positive effect. In one study, men were told 3 days in advance that they were going to watch a funny video. Their stress levels dropped immediately. So add these things to your daily routine. Exercise, hug somebody, laugh, and have a quiet talk with God. They're some of the best things you can do to live a healthy life.
I tell you, I'm into health and fitness, and I must say it. I didn't have anything to do with producing that DVD, but it is fantastic, and we have a good team working on getting all that material together.
You know what's so great about it is there's so much in it that's doable. There are things that are simple that we can do that make a huge difference.
Yeah, the way you eat, the way you. But anyhow, it's protect your health, and we'll make this available to you. Free if you just call the number on your screen, 1-800-759-0700, or you can go to our website, cbn.com. But this is really, I mean, you couldn't get a course in medical school on health any better than this. This is
it's
tremendous.
really wonderfully done.
Okay.
We want you to be healthy.
Yeah, I say that as somebody who has been studying this stuff for years and years and years. It's well done. Okay, Terry.
Well, still ahead, we're going to bring it on with your email. Lynn says, my husband and I are separated. He continues to have sex with another woman. He says God forgives each time he has sex, but if you're not repentant enough to stop, does God keep forgiving this? Well, stay tuned for Pat's answer after this. Vera Ahmed lives in extreme poverty in Ukraine. She's the mother of 11 children. And yet, when a young girl in her village lost both of her parents, Vera couldn't resist opening her home to the child and her heart.
Vera has 11 children. The youngest 4 live at home. They have no electricity or running water, and an old stove barely keeps the house warm. Vera's husband is disabled, and she can't find steady work.
Sometimes I go weeks without work. Sometimes I'm forced to beg because we must feed our children. Today they've had nothing to eat yet, and I don't have anything to feed them.
She relies on her faith in Jesus Christ every day, and that's given her a compassionate heart.
Recently, I took in a girl who had no father or mother. She lived here and there a few days at a time, and I felt sorry for her. I know how hard it is to live that way. She's a good girl.
For years, Vera's prayed for a better home.
I do not have money to buy a good house. All I want are a few beds, a table, and a cabinet. Those things are too expensive for me. But I know that with God all things are possible. I believe God is kind and that He will not forsake us.
Without a better house, we knew that all of the kids were in danger of being taken by social services and put into an orphanage. We wanted to keep this family together, so CBN's Orphans Promise built them a new home and gave everyone new beds.
Now I know God heard my prayers. Seeing the new house fills me with great joy.
I like our new house. We have places to play and to sleep.
It's nice to be warm while we sleep. This house is a lot better than what we had before.
I want to thank everyone who helped us, from the people who donated money to the ones who built the house. Every night I thank God for this blessing.
This is just one family that we're helping. He happened to be in Ukraine, but one of the things we're committed to is helping families stay together, keep the orphan population down by giving families an opportunity to love each other, to be together, to eat, to have clean water, to have safe places to live. You're a part of all of that if you're a 700 Club member, and we want to say thank you. You can see the heart of this woman, and you are the ones who made a difference if you're joining with us. Our way of saying thank you to those of you who joined the 700 Club is to send you, if you join using Pledge Express, which is electronic monthly giving, it means your bank does all the work. It's actually pretty wonderful. We want to send you Power for Life teachings. We're going to get you one of these every month, and I think it'll be a blessing to you. They're teachings we receive here, and we want to share them with you, even as you share your goodness and your compassion and your generosity with other people. So call our toll-free number, 1-800-759-0700. Just say, I want to join the 700 Club, and I want to do it using Pledge Express.
You know, my heart goes out to you. See
my
a woman
goodness.
like that, the courage, the suffering. We just cannot conceive in this country of luxury. I mean, the what she has to go through and the indomitable courage. This is what God has put in people's hearts, and how they can survive. It just shows what can happen. And I'm just thrilled that somehow along the way we can help her and a few people like it. But there's so many others in the world, so many need our help, and well, we can do it. Okay, let's go to some questions.
Okay,
All right.
time for some Bring It On. This is from Lynn Pat, who says, my husband and I are separated. He continues to have sex with another woman. He says God forgives each time he has sex. But if you're not repentant enough to stop, does God keep forgiving this? Obviously, he's not sorry, or he would stop. How do you see Hebrews 10:26 that says, for if we sin willfully after we've received the knowledge of the truth, there no longer remains a sacrifice for sins?
Well, I tell you what, if I were that buddy, he's skating on mighty thin ice, and he's going to go to hell, and the devils are going to be taunting him. He's going to say, but you don't understand. I had a get out of jail free card, and they say, no, you didn't. I'm sorry. You can't presume on the goodness of the Lord like that. And I don't understand why you're separated. Why don't you get divorced? I mean, you're separated, and he's committing serial adultery, living with another woman. I don't understand. I can't understand these relationships that take place. But sooner or later, I mean, you have grounds, biblical grounds, to get on with your life. And, you know, you're still worrying about him committing sin. What you need to do is pray for him and, you know, love him as you would any human being. But get on with your life and let him live his life and you live yours, rather than looking for stuff in the Bible to show why he's wrong. I mean, you don't need that. You know, get on with your life, and, you know, he's cut the cords of that relationship, and you have biblical grounds, according to Jesus, to get a divorce, get remarried, get on with your life. So I'd suggest you do it.
Okay, this is Rob, who says, Pat, I'm struggling so hard with my faith these days. I feel so distant from God, and no matter what I try, I feel like I'm getting further away from him. I have severe depression and daily pain from acute colitis. I think of ending my life daily, yet when I turn to God, all I feel is a great emptiness. And when I pray, awful thoughts run through my mind, blocking the prayer. What am I doing wrong? I need help.
Well, I don't think you are doing anything wrong, but I think something inside of you is wrong. Colitis is caused by extreme tension and stress, and what you've got something going on that is causing your body to rebel against you, and it's trying to recover. I really think you need to have a complete physical. You need to understand the whole pathology of what's going on in your life, and you need to get that physical stuff fixed. As long as you got that condition, then your mind isn't, it doesn't have enough stability to handle the pressure that you've got. So we just did a piece on stress, and I think the stress is causing the colitis. The colitis, in turn, is causing you to feel spiritually bankrupted. So you can go back the other way, get before the Lord, and just talk to him. You know, talk to God, and like he's your friend, and say, look, God, I've got this problem, help me. And then I do recommend, though, that you go to somebody who is skilled in advanced medicine, and see what you can find out about the problems you have.
Yeah, he mentioned severe depression, and that also is an imbalance in your body. So
I think it's caused by physiological forces, and you need maybe some medication on it. You need to figure your diet and exercise and all that stuff that's causing it. You may have vitamin deficiency. There's so many things, but get to somebody who can help you. All right.
This is Curtis, who says, I was baptized years ago and received the Holy Spirit then. Between then and now, I strayed, but never lost my belief in God and Jesus. God does work in my life now, but somehow I feel that the Spirit is not the same as it was before. Should I get baptized to receive the Holy Spirit again? Please answer this for me.
No, you've done what you need to do. You know, there's a guy named David, and he was king, and the time had come when kings are supposed to go off to war, and he stayed at home in the palace. Then he's looking down at the rooftop of a lady. She's taking a bath. Her name is Bathsheba. She's gorgeous, and he's out there. And so he's got all these women. He's got all these wives. He's got concubines. He's got all the sex he can handle, but he sees one more. And so he says, well, you bring her over to me. And so here she comes, and he's king, and she has to do what he tells her to do, and so they have sex together, and she gets pregnant, and then she has a baby. And now he goes and tries to kill one of the special members of his elite guard. Uriah the Hittite just wasn't some soldier out there. He was a member of the 30, the really august group. And so he takes him up there and tries to get him to go home, sleep with his wife, and he says, I'm not going to do it. And so he sends him back to the battle with orders to be put in the front of the troops and get killed. So David commits adultery, tries to cover it up, has the innocent person murdered, and then he goes before God. Now, that's about as bad as you can get in it. And so you read the Bible, it says, restore unto me the joy of my salvation. And get this, and take not thy Holy Spirit from me. So despite everything David had done, the Holy Spirit was still there. But the joy of his salvation had gone. So what you do is confess your sin, you come to the Lord, but you don't have to go back and say, I want the Holy Spirit again, because if you have the gifts and calling of God are without repentance. So in your life, spend time, take it easy, and talk to the Lord and let him restore what's there. And he'll do it because he loves you. That's all the time we've got. Thanks for those questions. Some pretty tough questions today, but we'll do the best we can. Well, today's Power Minute is from Psalm 86. Quote, for you, Lord, are good and ready to forgive and abundant in mercy to all those who call upon you. Well, tomorrow, the Green Bay Packers' Jordy Nelson on farming, faith, and what it takes to win a Super Bowl. And Terry will be telling you all about it. She can hardly wait. That's her team.
That is the truth. That is my team.
The Green Bay Packers. We'll see you. Bye-bye. Thanks for being with us.